Thank you so much for watching Morning Live. Now, we've been talking about the raids in the Joburg CBD, and the Gauteng South African Police Services will today continue with these raids in other areas of Gauteng under the SAPS-led anti-crime operation Kae Molao. And yesterday, police confiscated loads of counterfeit goods as well as unlicensed firearms in the Johannesburg city centre. And according to the police, over 600 undocumented foreign nationals have also been taken in for verification of their status in the country. And SAPS Gauteng spokesperson, Brigadier Mathapelo Peters, is here with us this morning to tell us a little bit more. Thanks so much for your time and for coming through.
It's a pleasure. Good morning to your viewers too.
So let's start here. Yesterday's raid, obviously a big one, and this after the previous one was suspended. Now, you had the Police Minister Bheki Cele there, you had the Premier of Gauteng, David Makhura, also in attendance. Explain to us, exactly why you decided on this high-profile raid following that aborted one last week.
Well, Sakina, we have actually been conducting these raids almost on a weekly basis. But then last week, what happened was that through our crime intelligence, we got information that there was a consignment of about 10 million rands worth of counterfeit goods that came in to Gauteng, to Johannesburg particularly. So when we went there, we were obviously met with resistance. It was widely publicized. The attackers were violent on us, and we had to withdraw because the only other alternative would have been to use live ammunition, which we didn't want to do. So we came back, we regrouped, we intensified, we increased the number of deployments, and yesterday we went back because we knew that was a distribution point of these counterfeit goods in the country.
So you specifically targeted that particular building?
Yesterday's operation was more the precinct. We went to different buildings actually in that precinct. It was about 3 blocks of streets that we had cordoned off. And then we found, at least in one building on the 12th floor, where we believe the cargo was hidden, we found multiple rands of worth of goods, as well as firearms that were found which were unlicensed. The suspect claimed that they belonged to a security company, but he couldn't provide proof of these firearms.
And obviously that is a worrying thing, these unlicensed firearms, not that everything else isn't, but that particularly, given the high levels of crime, the high levels of violent crime in this province, surely that was of major concern to you as well.
Definitely it was, because imagine we went there for counterfeit goods, so that's the last thing we expected to find there. So they were confiscated and they will be subjected to ballistic testing just to make sure and check that they haven't been used in the commission of crime before. Because like you said, serious and violent crime is a serious problem in Johannesburg. Most robberies are committed using firearms.
And then, of course, the question arises, what are you ultimately hoping to achieve through these raids? Because people sell these counterfeit goods openly, in broad daylight. You and I can take a walk down a street in Johannesburg right now, and we will find more counterfeit goods being sold. So what exactly are you hoping to achieve through these particular raids?
You are correct in as far as anybody having access to these goods and being able to sell on the streets. And that's the exact reason why we went to this area, because like I said, we were tipped off basically that this is the distribution point. When the goods are smuggled into the country, that is where they go, in the Johannesburg CBD, in Jeppe Street, what is now Rahima Musa. So we believe that when we deal with the supply, when we cut off this distribution point, then we will ultimately end up with a point where we don't have the street sellers anymore, street vendors selling counterfeit goods. Because what also happened is that, the brand owners, it's the legitimate brand owners that come and complain to the police that, listen, we know about this going on, we've also got information, and then we operationalize this information, and hence the raid like yesterday and last week Thursday.
But what happens in the interim? Because one could argue that if the law enforcement officials are actually serious about dealing and stemming this tide of the trade in counterfeit goods, then you would have a zero tolerance approach to it. Then you would target every single person selling these on a daily basis, not just periodic raids. How would you respond to that?
Our operations, Sakina, are intelligence-driven. And we are now at a point where, like you said earlier, with the presence of the minister, this has now gone above the level of the police only. Various government departments have come on board. And we believe, in the same manner that we do drug busts, we believe that when we cut off the supply, ultimately that will result in no selling of the merchandise on the streets. So we are optimistic that we are on the right track. And like Provincial Commissioner General Mawela always says, watch the space. So since from yesterday, I believe we are going on a different approach. It proved very successful yesterday. Our intelligence is on the ground. I mean, if I can also quote yesterday, in one building that's a bit far from where we were actually, although in the same vicinity, we found 46 vehicles that were packed to capacity with the counterfeit goods because our intelligence had received information that the shop owners were moving the merchandise overnight. And that was also found. So our approach will be to work strongly with our intelligence operators as well as heighten the intensity of these operations.
But one would imagine that the police would be consistent in their approach, because my question then is whether these two attacks would be mutually exclusive, whereby you go for the suppliers, but equally you target those who are selling the goods on the street.
It's not mutually exclusive per se, because even now we are in Benoni, our members are in Benoni conducting operations. We have embarked on Operation Kae Molao, and there we're not only focusing on counterfeit goods, we're focusing on a lot more criminal activities where we've closed down illegal liquor outlets, as well as roadblocks are being conducted. So it is not a matter of us focusing on one and leaving out the other. This bigger one needed to happen at the scale that it happened yesterday, but the small, call it smaller ones, that will be your normal crime prevention duty that happens every day.
One of the things that has been mentioned here today severally is whether you would be going to what we call China malls, that there are several across the city of Johannesburg and in Gauteng. What are you doing about them?
We are looking into that as well. And through our own analysis, we know that most of what we call your branded goods are in the CBD. With the Chinese, sorry if I can call it that, with the China malls and all of that, it's not really branded goods. The branding, because in fact, yesterday also on one floor of the building, we found machinery, which we believe is used to develop or embroider some of these logos onto the thing. So at the China malls, it is not as much as it is in the CBD.
But it is there. And then there are other knockoff goods as well. Does this mean that your appetite to go into those areas is perhaps not as great as to target the CBD?
Remember, our operations are intelligence-driven, like I said. So if the volume, we're looking at the volumes. So the most volumes have been proven to be in the CBD in terms of branded items.
But where do those goods come from? What is your intelligence telling you?
Well, just yesterday, the Provincial Commissioner confirmed that we would also be going to places such as City Deep, but we obviously cannot say when, because we believe that is the nodal point where the goods comes in, whether legally or illegally through the borders. And like I said, the involvement of other government departments as well would assist us in curbing just the very fact that they come in through the borders of the country. Although yesterday we were able to also realize that some of it is actually manufactured in the country. It's not necessarily a matter of them having been shipped in from elsewhere.
And then with regard to the 600 or so undocumented foreign nationals who were arrested, is there any update on that situation?
Well, we have about 48 hours within which we should have processed these foreign nationals. So Home Affairs is on board. They are verifying the status of these people in the country, as well as our own local criminal record center, just to check that they haven't committed any crimes in the country. So within 48 hours from yesterday, we should be done with that.
And then just finally, a story in the news now, 7 of your own arrested, 2 from the Tactical Response Unit arrested for having tipped off. And we've been speculating that there must be some tip-offs coming from within your own ranks. So it was confirmed you've arrested 2 people and 5 others for trying to resell the confiscated goods back to the perpetrators. This doesn't do much for instilling confidence in the police in a situation where there's already quite a big trust deficit between the public and police.
It is actually a slap in the face. We were quite disappointed yesterday. However, the provincial commissioner also commended those members that made it their business to make sure that these people are arrested and they face the music. Because like you say, everyone speculated. Last week we got there, you could see these people had planned the attack on police. If you go to the area, you can't even see where you could find loose bricks, but they had them. And then we went again yesterday in the morning. When we got there, the shops were closed. So obviously there was something to it, but we were excited, if I can put it that way, by our own intelligence members who were able to investigate and swiftly come up with names of people. And also we must say thank you to other law-abiding citizens who came forward with information and were able to identify these perpetrators.
We'll have to park it there, and as these raids continue, hopefully we'll continue to engage. Thank you so much to SAPS Gauteng spokesperson Brigadier Mathapelo Peters speaking to us this morning about those raids, police raids taking place in order to bring back order into the Joburg CBD and of course Gauteng as a whole. We're going to go to a break.